Okay. What is he doing?
They're apparently setting up for something else as soon as
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, Nathan.
Whenever you want.
Yeah, because you're going to be speaking, so. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me now? Oh, that's better. Thank you for joining us for Broken Hearts Day. Whether you are here with us at Nathan Phillips Square or live streaming. My name is Rafi Aaron, and I am the spokesperson for the Interfaith Coalition to Fight Homelessness. I want to begin with a land acknowledgement. Before we recognize the ancestors and the original law of this place, we want to make sure everyone understands that reading out a land acknowledgement does not constitute truth and reconciliation. Truth and reconciliation is a two-part phrase, and Canada is only beginning to do the work of understanding the truth. The reconciliation part will take great effort on the part of all Canadians and generations to achieve. What we are saying here is this: don't think when you hear a land acknowledgement or speak one that you can say that you did the work. Reading the land acknowledgement is only the beginning of creating the awareness necessary to take action and affect change. Firstly, we want to acknowledge that the original law of this territory. It is important for everyone who lives here to think hard about which laws they are both loyal to and are choosing to uphold in this time of so-called truth and reconciliation. We want to acknowledge that we work and live on Treaty 13 territory, which is governed by the great law of peace and the dish with one spoon wampum. The law and the wampum state that we only take what we need, that we leave the lands and waters in good shape for future generations, and that we uphold the principles of non-interference in all that we do. This land is home to the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe nations. These nations have taken care of the lands, waters, and honored creation since time immemorial. We take this time to give thanks to all our ancestors and the work they have done to ensure we have a place to call home today. We give thanks to the Creator and all of creation for this chance to come together today in a good way. Again, this is not about reading a land acknowledgement or listening to it. It is about doing the work. For me, this has meant listening, learning, then asking, what do you need? More listening than creating a plan together and acting upon it. It means building trust so that we can build relationships. It means knowing that everything we do is only a minuscule healing in the greatest caused by genocide, intergenerational violence, systemic prejudice, and hatred that we as settlers are responsible for. Today, as we gather to create space to mourn the almost 4 homeless deaths a week in our city and the 132 homeless deaths in Toronto's shelters, we acknowledge there is a disproportionate number of Indigenous deaths. Indigenous people make up 3% of the total population of Toronto and account for well over 40% of those experiencing homelessness in this city. When we leave here today, we must ask ourselves, what actions can we take to reverse this horrific trend and eliminate these deaths? How can we uphold the original law and agreements of this land? What can we bring to the circle of healing that is needed to ensure that truth and reconciliation is more than just a phrase for the generations to come? Sarah Louie is a fine drummer. She's also a harm reduction worker that I have had the pleasure of working with and is best described as a beautiful person. Today, Sarah is joined by fellow drummers Monica Forrester and Maybella King Reynolds.
Okay.
All right. We're gonna stand over here or back there?
Wherever you want.
Oh, we're pretty loud. Yeah. Stand here, I guess. Okay. Hello. My name is Sarah. I have 2 spirit names, which are Spotted Eagle Woman and Singing Wolf. I am Cree and Soto. I come from Swan River. Myself and addictions and I find my healing and my medicine in drumming, so I'm really honored to be here today to be able to drum for this event, remembering our fallen homeless folks. So, Rich, thank you for having me. Anybody wants to say anything? No?
Hi everyone, I'm Monica Forster, a two-spirit trans woman of color from Turf Lake. I've also been
Oh, you want to stand the microphone?
working in harm reduction for 22 years as the manager of the harm reduction team at Legging Toronto, and I also work at Street House. I'm all over the place, but thank you for coming today, and we're rich.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Valentine Reynolds. I'm two-spirit trans. I'm from Missionary Point First Nation, Western Prairie, Canada. I also carry two spirit names. The first one is Thunderbird of the Stars. The second one is Washington. I also was homeless when I first came to Toronto back in the late 80s. I had abused visitors mostly for 22 years. I was homeless.
They weren't supposed to speak.
So we're going to sing 3 songs for you today. The first 2 songs we'll start with is the Strong Women's song and the Men's Healing song, because while we are here remembering our lost homeless people who have passed away, we also want to send love to the homeless people who are currently out there. And at the end, at the end of the event, we'll sing the Traveling song, which is a song that is meant to send off spirits in a good way. Okay, so hopefully, guys.
Thank you. My heart is breaking, and our hearts are breaking from the immense suffering and the great number of deaths we are seeing in our community. It has been overwhelming and too much to bear for too long. Today, we are coming together to create space to grieve the almost 4 homeless deaths a week in our city and the 132 deaths in shelters. These numbers are appalling and would be surreal if we didn't have a personal connection to those who are dying. Think about this for a moment. 132 deaths in city shelters that Mayor Tory, councillors, and senior city staff have termed safe indoor spaces. These deaths all have 3 things in common. They were preventable, they were predictable, and they were caused by government neglect. There is also something else that we know, that if 4 people from any other sector of society were dying each week, every available resource would be put into solving this issue. Broken Hearts Day supports the Interfaith Coalition to Fight Homelessness's letter to Mayor Tory, Chief Pegg, and Dr. Davila of January 19th, which now has 105 signatories, imploring them to seek federal assistance to stop the humanitarian disaster that is taking the lives of those experiencing homelessness in Toronto. Since that letter was written, 3 people have died of hypothermia. In the week of January 23rd, a frontline organization lost 5 clients, 1 for every day it was open. 1 woman died of hypothermia in a bus. If the measures outlined in our letter had been acted upon, these lives would have been saved. So we are here today to grieve, but we are also here to tell Mayor Tory, councillors, and city staff that these deaths will not be tolerated. Not today, not tomorrow, or ever. Our first speaker is Imam Abdul Hai Patel. He is the founder and past coordinator of the Canadian Council of Imams. He is currently their Director of Interfaith Relations. He's been serving as an imam and community builder for 46 years in Canada. He's received many awards for his work, including the Governor General's Award and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal. What impressed me most about Imam Hai Patel is when he told me he started the Answar Foundation because he could no longer bear to see homeless people eating out of garbage cans on his way to work every morning. Answar continues to engage in outreach, providing food and clothing to our community members here and in Scarborough. Please welcome Imam Abdul Hai Patel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming out, and thank you, Rafi, for giving me this first opportunity because I have a medical appointment, so I have to leave afterwards. What we heard just now, 132 deaths, and I've also remind many of you that many names are written there on the plaque by Trinity Church, which I have been attending memorials for. How long can we go on like this? The message we are all giving today to our elected officials and also to our community, that this is unacceptable in a city as rich as Toronto, a country as rich as Canada, that we have a homeless population that is growing exponentially. I have lived most of my life, over 50 years in this city here. And in the last 40 years or so, I've seen more people, as you heard, eating from garbage cans and sleeping on the street sidewalks and freezing to death. As a Muslim, I was reminded by a saying of the Prophet Muhammad that that person is not my follower, that person is not among us whose neighbors go without food and shelter. And also in the Quran, it is said, the poor has a right in the wealth of the rich. I think it is time that we step forward. Faith communities have always come forward in feeding, as we see many times on Sundays and other weekends, handing out food and other needs as well. How long can this go on? That's my question. If we have hearts, if we respect human rights, and as a former commissioner of Human Rights Commission Ontario myself, housing is a human right in this country. But we are not giving that right to the people. And we are seeing homeless more and more in the streets of Toronto and in other cities as well. There are good models to look at around the world, as I have seen how they have rehabilitated, reintegrated people in the society. And this is what we need to do. We have to overcome NIMBYism, educate our community that if we are followers of God or true faith, whatever faith we are following, even if we have no faith, at least we have to respect the human dignity. They are human beings that we are seeing dying. 132 have died, and the 2022 is not over yet. And the winter is not over yet. So we don't want to see any more. It is time that we open our eyes, let our elected officials, but also we need the community to come forward more and more, and perhaps start a program called Adopt a Homeless. Adopt a Homeless. Help people to understand the needs and the human values of people. And this is what Ansar Foundation, the organization that I founded, we are reaching out to help the homeless, feeding the homeless, just last week we handed out winter supplies and other shelters that we are reaching, women's shelters especially, because in many shelters, I just heard women are not allowed. So this is something that we have to overcome, this kind of prejudice, this kind of discrimination, and help the people that are in need. As we all, how many of you have the hearts, raise them, that we have open our hearts and love for the homeless. This is what we come here to do, and let us pledge our support to help the coalition, help other organizations, other faith communities, other organizations who are helping the poor and needy, and may God bless all of you and bless us and help us to eliminate this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Iman Hai Patel. Reverend Cameron Watts has worked tirelessly to fight poverty and homelessness. For the last 4 years, Reverend Watts has been the co-chair of Faith in the City, a coalition representing many faiths who work for social justice in Toronto. Faith in the City has been a voice for equity in the city's budget process, the housing for those who are unhoused, and was instrumental in preventing the province from establishing a casino in Toronto. Reverend Watts has been a Christian minister since 1980 and is currently the minister of Forest Grove United Church. I'm proud to call him my brother.
Last night I was at our dining room table with my grandchildren and we were cutting out hearts. And of course one of them in the middle of the craft work says, "What are we doing this for?" And I started to explain it to her. "No, why do you need hearts for the cold?" I said, "Because maybe we insulate ourselves from the cold so easily that we have learned how to insulate ourselves from the people around us." Well, 7-year-olds are persistent. Well, why can't we find a place for the people who are cold? had trouble answering her. And I want to ask the people who are supposed to be in the building behind me, why is it so hard to find a place for people who don't have a place to live? And I think it's up to us to keep asking that question until we get an answer that all of us in this city can live with. 2.5 millennia ago, the prophet Jeremiah went shopping and he bought himself a little clay pot, and he went and he stood at the gates of the city, and he waited until he had a bit of a crowd, probably not much different from this one, and he took this beautiful clay pot and he smashed it on the ground in front of him.